All right. Chris Evans here from Advisor Growth Lab, and I'm here with the one and only Mr. Jerry Corliss, president and is it president or CEO
CEO,
extraordinaire?
but it doesn't. Yeah.
Some
So,
really fancy title.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Founder,
Yeah.
Axiom Planning Resources. How you doing?
And I'm on top of the world, brother. How about yourself?
Yes, sir. So we were having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and you broke out this spreadsheet, and you were really excited about just how Axiom is helping advisors transform not only their lives, but their client's life
Yeah.
with just the model and the structure and how you guys seemingly are changing the industry to go from kind of old school, old mentality structure model to how you guys are currently operating at Axiom, which is essentially, for lack of better words, predictable revenue.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be really beneficial for us to just jump in here and open up this playbook for these advisors who maybe feel stressed and feel like they're not doing the best by their clients and maybe open to a new model that can not only serve them well, but their clients well. So you good to
Yeah,
discuss that?
100%. The only caveat or comment I would make on your introduction there
Yeah.
is that we're certainly not saying we're the only ones in the industry that are doing, recurring revenue model.
Yeah.
However, what we have done is in our desire to solve some of the problems that we experienced, we have found some ways to expedite the progression into a recurring revenue practice. For many people, they come from the same circumstances in life, and it might take 10, 15, 20 years to really get to that point, the desired state where perhaps we could lower that down to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And
Yeah.
that's just a little additional commentary. We're not saying we're the only ones, but we do believe that we found some meaningful, predictable ways to expedite the progression for sure.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. I think this is, we do a lot of research on our end, especially from the ad side, and we survey a lot of advisors and we talk to advisors. And so I think this comes down to kind of, for sake of this conversation and this training, really story of two types of advisors: an advisor who might feel trapped and an advisor who feels free.
Yeah.
And we've heard from both of them. I think here are two comparisons. If you're at your computer, of course, you can see this. If not, you can go to the Axiom Plan and Resources site and you will find this training there. But these are two comparisons that I think are very strongly contrasted, in that maybe this resonates with you if you are an advisor who you feel like your revenue constantly resets, you have pressure to sign clients, you feel like you're constantly always chasing, you're on the treadmill just to keep up, you can't ever outrun the commission, like you're always chasing that next check. And what that equates to, oftentimes, from what we've seen, and obviously you're the expert in this, is continual stress that never seems to go away, and maybe less service, less benefit to the client. And then oftentimes what we've seen in our research is actual guilt, like deep guilt about the lack of being able to show up for their clients. And so getting more and more quantity, but not necessarily quality. And then you have on the flip side, the advisor who I'd say is more the free advisor, who they know what their paycheck is going to be, right? And they work with a smaller pool of clients, but they're higher quality, and they're able to serve their clients better by providing what's best for the clients versus what's going to pay the highest commission or what's pushed by the firm. And then a big part of the conversation we're having today is they build revenue that actually compounds, and everybody in that scenario wins. Would you say there's anything off with these two comparisons, or would you adjust, update?
Yeah, I think that there, again, a couple just footnotes, if you will. I'd say that a question to ask is, what is it in the industry, kind of traditional systems that
Hmm.
that result in a large segment of trapped advisors versus free advisors? number one. There's a why. Anybody would look at this and if you could see the slide and go, "Well, I don't think I'll choose to be a trapped advisor." So what is it?
Nobody's
You
going to wear that t-shirt.
exactly. So what's the introduction that ultimately leads to that result somewhat fairly predictably? And
Hmm.
then on the free advisor side, the only comment I would make is there's works with fewer higher quality clients. Just to clarify, by higher quality, I think, Chris, your definition and intention in there is not anything character related. It's just really
Right.
referring traditionally, it ends up advisors working with higher net worth clients. And the comment there would be that the great news is in today's environment, financial environment, you can really work with almost any client from a net worth standpoint on a recurring revenue model. The beauty is that all accounts can have recurring revenue, which means
Hmm.
that
Mm.
you can introduce team members that are appropriate with tenure and
Mm.
resources and experience to service, right, relevant client complexity. And so you can actually have the best of both worlds because many advisors get in this and they want to help people who want to be helped,
Yeah.
right? And you can meet those people where they are. But if you're that free advisor, you have the revenue to bring an additional advisor on who has the like a commensurate level of tenure and wisdom and experience themselves to match with that client complexity, which is typically going to be a more simple situation than a high or ultra high net worth client. And so, really, the world of clients can actually be served here with that free advisor responsibly and sustainably. And the founding advisors that start off with their early clients with typically smaller account balances, they can still see that those people are well taken care of as they escalate themselves in academic understanding and experience, which results, of course, in wisdom and growing complexity. So just want to make that note. Everyone
Yeah.
can be serviced with that free advisor. So it's really fulfilling in addition to the responsible financial model as well.
That's an important distinction. And I think also speaks to the heart of Axiom and the character of Axiom. Like I've met and spoken to a lot of Axiom advisors, and I'd say that's the case, that it's about taking care of who we have within our stewardship to take care of,
That's right.
right? The
Yeah.
appropriate way.
No.
Awesome. So, of course, we've seen the treadmill, which you did allude to, like, and I guess we can speak to this in a second, but what does this old way of doing business, how does that hurt the people that are involved, which would be the advisor, the client, and the firm? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So just the traditional model of entering into the business is if we just want to have some raw honesty around this,
Yeah.
right? One of the probably not publicly well known, but inside the industry well known statistics is 4 year retention, right? And it's very low, right?
Hmm.
So I believe 4 year retention on the industry standard is somewhere maybe even south of 10%. So 90% plus of people that try to become an advisor succeed as an advisor or they are 4 years later, right? So those statistics are not good, which resultantly means that those trying to bring in new advisors go, okay, well, we need to have a minimum capital outlay per advisor because there's a very high failure rate, which means that the resulting platform is a new person comes into the business and it's really like we're going to give you some basics, which generally are along the lines of what we are going to give you is training. And so you're going to have an academic understanding of the financial environment and products, and we're going to give you training on how to communicate, and we're going to equip you with some technology, meaning like a laptop
Yeah.
and interfaces where you can process business, and there's probably someone to help you process your business, like a new
Hmm.
business processing team. But outside of that, there's very little. And so what that means is that although there are somewhere near 7 billion people on the planet, it's hard to find 20 clients, right? And so a lot of people go out and they can't find those 20 clients and there's no capital, right? So very few people can work
Hmm.
for any meaningful amount of time with no income, right? And so then that leads to, for those that are in that situation, it's like, man, all right, well, this person is willing to roll over their IRA to me. and
Mm-hmm.
I have two choices. I can check a box, and this isn't necessarily anything that the public even knows is a choice that an advisor has, but there can either be an upfront commission, and let's just
Mm-hmm.
say net to the advisor, that's maybe 4% of whatever that deposit is, or I can charge a level fee, and let's say that's 1% per year, and then the advisor maybe gets half of that. Right. So on a $100,000 deposit, I can choose a commission and I get $4,000 immediately,
Mm-hmm.
or I can get $40 per month. Right. And so
Mm.
for a person that has entered an industry where the way that they equip you is with training and some technology and office space, but not capital, not working capital, and you don't have your own working capital, they're typically going to choose that upfront commission because they
Right.
have to have that income, and thus begins the commission treadmill. So then the next month they have to find that next new $100,000, and the next month and the next month, right? And that begins the treadmill.
Mm. Yeah, it seems inescapable. Maybe to
Well,
some people that are watching or listening.
yeah, the calculus is typically like, and again, I've run the race, got the t-shirt. This is why we are built like we are,
Yeah.
because a number of us experienced this and observed other people go through it. And it can be a painful experience on a number of levels, right? Number one,
Mm.
from your personal income and the volatility and your ability to meet your personal financial obligations. And so you can be struggling financially as a newer advisor, and yet you're trying to teach people about how to manage their finances, and
That's rough.
you have personal stress and feelings that, you're disingenuous. And then also, if you look at a situation like that and the person gives you what might be to them their life savings,
Mm.
naturally, if they've given you their life savings, they're planning to have more than one conversation with you about that. And so then you get into year two and year three and year four. And but your revenue model is, well, I've got to constantly find new money. I need to go back and do reviews with these people. But you have this growing number of clients who have deposited significant wealth of theirs to you.
Right.
Uh, and they're expecting to have conversations. And you, in your heart, want to honor that, want to service their accounts, and go back and meet with them. But there's no revenue associated with those accounts because of that upfront commission option. And so over time, too, there's often implicit, if not explicit, commitments that were made at
Mm.
the onset of the client relationship that are broken, not by intention, not by the desire of the heart, but almost by like a hierarchy of needs. I've got to take care of my personal financial obligations, and this is my business model. And when I have time, I'll get back to these people. Some people can slowly overcome it, Chris, right?
Yeah.
So that model looks like, well, all right, so my business and personal budgets combined are now $10,000 a month. But if I can raise $3 million a month, then on a portion of this I can do recurring, and a portion of this I do upfront, right? And they can slowly accumulate that recurring revenue. Just requires a high degree of performance and discipline and
Mm.
managing personal and business expenses to overcome that. So it's not impossible to overcome. Many do. It just can often take a long time, and there's wounds and scars along the way.
Yeah. And so one of the things that you're going to show us here in a minute is how that's overcome by this new model, a new way of doing business.
Right. Right on.
So when recurring revenue is a part of an advisor's business, how does that change things? What is it? How is that different for the advisor? How is that different for the client? And then also the future of both.
Sure. And so if we started what is ultimately from a fulfillment standpoint, the lowest level,
Hmm.
but nonetheless, it's obviously an important component, but it's the sustainability of
Hmm.
the advisor's business, right? So their revenue stream is predictable. And it may go down. Obviously, a fee is a percentage of the assets that are under management. And so if the investments, right, in those client portfolios go down in value, obviously the fee, since it's a percentage of the account balance, the fees go down as well. But nonetheless, within reason, it's predictable. And in most years, right, that continues to go up, particularly with new deposits that are being made by existing clients and new clients that they're taking on. And so the advisor has a piece of recurring revenue. They know that every month revenue is coming into their business. And
Hmm.
then component to that is they're building equity, right? You get a multiple of your revenue for selling your practice at some point, your recurring revenue, right? So it also
Hmm.
has an equity value. So an advisor can get to the end of a year and look at not only how much did they grow in their revenue, but also how much did they grow in their equity. And so they're really building their net worth through the value of their business. It really almost is like a byproduct of just being in a responsible, sustainable model. And so it's good for their income, for their peace of mind. It also builds equity for them. And then there's really like what we've experienced and seen is this whole model is built on ongoing client relationships. And so when you're in these recurring revenue models, there's an actual requirement,
Hmm.
right? You have to meet the client at least once a year and do their reviews. And many times it may be more often than that. And so the client is like their expectations are being met, right? And so the client's happy with the advisor. They're typically becoming an advocate for that advisor over time. Referrals call the advisor instead of the advisor looking for new business. And so over time, the advisor builds this population of clients that are really advocates and fans. And when somebody's maybe they're at dinner with a friend that hasn't heard from their advisor in a few years, probably
Hmm.
because their advisor put them in a commission-based product and the market's down or there's things going on in the global economy and they have a conversation and comes up, well, what's your advisor saying? And one person says, well, I haven't really talked to my advisor in 3 years. And then the advisor or the client that has the recurring revenue advisor is like, oh, you need to call my advisor. I talked to him. They called me when all this started, and here's the
Yeah.
number. And so we see that those advisor practices typically grow much faster from organic referrals from the advocacy of existing clients. And then, as we mentioned in the beginning of this, there's also the recurring revenue model allows for the horizontal growth of the advisor's practice as well. And so
Hmm.
at some point, they're going to get to, they have 150, 200 families, somewhere in that range.
Hmm.
Or they're going to have all the meetings that they can keep for a year. And so then the
Yeah.
answer is looking at the clients, the complexity of their individual situations, bringing in an associate advisor, introducing them and then sharing revenue in exchange for service with certain clients that are appropriate based on
Mm.
complexity with tenure, experience, and wisdom. And so the advisor can continue to take on new clients and grow the value of their revenue, their recurring revenue, their equity, service all of their clients, the ones that they started with, and still be able to take on new clients, and then also meaningfully add to their infrastructure. And so if you think about that, there's going to need to be more people working inside of the office that are reaching out to the clients proactively as well and continuing to optimize the client experience. And so it's truly like as that recurring revenue grows, it truly it grows revenue and equity and allows them to grow horizontally with other advisors to see that all clients continue to get the service level that they desire, which results in a fan base and
Yeah.
organic referrals that are coming in, and then staff that can create that optimal client experience to continue to improve and refine things. So it's literally like the opposite side of the spectrum from
Mm.
the commission treadmill where clients feel potentially disenfranchised and they haven't heard from their
Mm.
advisor.
Yeah. It's like a fountain, not a drain.
And correct.
And it compounds everything. Like
Mhm.
everything it seems positively affected by it.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, so this is a bit of the old model versus new, just a visual again for anybody who sees the slides on. This will be on YouTube too, on Axiom's YouTube channel, but you can just see the comparison. Do you have your slides up? Because I think it'd be really beneficial just to show numbers for someone who's in that old model commission cycle to how you guys are structured and what the opportunity might be. And also, if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you, then I think it would be really make a lot of sense for you to consider having a conversation with Axiom. You can go to axiomplanningresources.com/connect and talk to one of the team members. Feel like, hey, what does it look like to have, just work with you guys and connect with you? And what do the numbers look like for me as an advisor? Right. You can have that conversation with the team.
Sure. And so
All right. Yeah, go
we
ahead.
put this together, Chris, really just to put some numbers with it to really give people a
Hmm.
frame of reference of what can happen. Mhm. This assumes advisor one and advisor two bring in the same amount of assets per year, which,
Yep.
it's going to depend on the individual circumstances, but I would contend that the advisor that's in the recurring revenue model long term is actually going to bring in significantly more assets because of that fan base, the kept commitments. But
Hmm.
in this just clinical analysis, it's advisor one and advisor two both bring in the same amount of deposits. And so we'll take a look at advisor one. You see in year one in new deposits, they bring in $1 million, and then they're able to grow those deposits by $500,000 per year. And what they do is they're like, okay, well, I got to make ends meet. And so 80% goes into a transaction-based product that's at 6%. And so the gross dealer concession on that $1 million is $48,000. And then they take 20% and they put it into a recurring fee. They want to build their recurring fees. They understand the value of that. They're trying to get there. And so 200,000 of that million goes into a 1% fee product. So that's $2,000 of gross dealer concession there for a total of $50,000 of gross dealer concession. And then you have the business value, which is, we're just using a reference of a three multiple of the recurring revenue. So recurring
Hmm.
revenue at $2,000 grows to $6,000. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yep.
Right. And so you see this progression, and it's just the same math over and over again. So, if you take year five, for example, $3 million in new deposits, 80% of that is 2.4 million at 6%, and they have the 6% transaction-based revenue in there. The recurring fee revenue is growing, right? So 20% of the annual deposits have been going into that, and then we assume that's growing at a 5% rate here. For the total gross dealer concession, the sum of those two is 165,000 and 65,000 of equity. Advisor two, though, is in a capital position where they're not taking any transaction-based revenue up front. And so this is just to show how this can be expedited in terms of recurring revenue. So all $1 million goes into a 1% recurring fee. So it's $10,000 of gross dealer concession. So there's a gap there of gross dealer concession in year one of $40,000. So advisor two has less revenue there. The business value now is already $30,000 versus $6,000.
Hmm.
Go out to year five, commission-based advisors at $165,000 of gross dealer concession. You see that the advisor two is still trailing. They're at $109,000. Their business value is $328,000 as opposed to $65,000. So they built significantly more equity.
Hmm.
And the difference here is that in year five, when advisor one wakes up on January 1st, they've got $21,000 of recurring revenue, right?
Mm.
Advisor two has got $109,000 of recurring revenue. So you can
Massive
imagine,
difference.
Chris, like if you can sink yourself into this, like the stress difference
That's
between like I've got $1,800 a month coming in versus I have 9,000 a month coming in recurring revenue, right?
I might start January out on vacation.
Exactly, right? And then, you have it in here year nine. And again, this assumes both advisors are bringing in the same amount of assets per year. So in year nine, the new deposits are up to $5 million. So there's $240,000 of commission-based gross dealer concessions, $62,000 of recurring fee revenue for total gross dealer concession of 302,000 and business value of 187,000.
Mm.
When we look at advisor two, they bring in that same 5 million. Their recurring revenue is now up to $322,000. So what is it, almost $27,000 per month, as opposed to 5,000 a month and some change. Business value almost $1 million. Business value of under $200,000.
That is insane.
Carry it out to year 15. Total gross revenue for the commission-based advisor that's doing the 80/20 is at 558. So they're doing significant revenue there, but only 174,000 of that is recurring. So they're having to go out, if they're bringing in $8 million, the lion's share of their income that year, 2/3 of it roughly, is still from, like, they have to find that new money.
Mm,
And their value is 524,000, 15 years in here. The recurring revenue is at 922,000 versus 175,000.
yeah.
And the equity value versus 524 is 2.76 million. And so you can only imagine with the stability of $922,000 of recurring revenue versus 175,000, the staff that you can bring in, the
Hmm.
associate advisors that you can bring in, the client experience that you can provide. Can you see this difference? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's insane. It's
And
such
really
a
with this, like,
contrast.
so no one would look at this and go like, well, I think I'd like to be advisor one. Let me just
Right.
jump on that, treadmill. But it's literally, it's this capital gap in these early years. That's the whole deal. And so there is a solution, which is let's bring on, we talked about that industry model of, like, you got this high volume of people that's brought on with a
Yeah.
very low success rate, which means we need to minimize the capital that goes in. And so it's a simple solution is let's take the same amount of capital. Let's just apply it to fewer people. Let's plug this capital gap so that they never get on the treadmill.
Mm,
Right? They start from day one. And we have advisors that are affiliated with us that have started from day one
hmm.
in a full recurring revenue model in their investment business. And resultantly, it doesn't take many years before they have tremendous stability in the business and they're well on their way to capacity and then expansion of moving from a practice into a company through client segmentation. And
Right.
so,
That should be another call that we do or training.
for sure.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, nobody I think in their right mind would want to be the trapped advisor, right? Advisor one. So can you just walk me through the person that sees like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I just feel some peace about how do I become a free advisor?
Sure.
So the income is a huge problem and I imagine objection. How does Axiom provide the solution to that? What does that look like? Walk me through. I'm advisor one. I want to become advisor two, trap to free. What is
Sure.
that process like?
Well, we really apply that logic of looking at capital that we have available and dealing with fewer, but nonetheless understanding, like, if there's an advisor that's listening that is currently advisor one, and that's having to split their revenue between commission-based products and recurring revenue,
Hmm.
they can understand the math. Like, if they could just port over and put everything in, we say if they don't eat the seeds, right, but they plant them in the ground, let it grow into a tree and eat fruit from the tree by doing recurring revenue model. It's really, we want to, of course, you need to have a capital partner that can sustain you through that and provide that capital bridge. And we are one of those capital partners. And what we're most interested in is in the heart.
Mm,
That they are the advisors that want to be in that recurring revenue model, that holistic model, because while they know it will serve them well, it will also serve the clients well. It's truly like win-win-win situation across the board. So the condition of the heart, and then people that, if you're advisor one, you're proven that you can do the business. It's just a matter of the way that you're structuring your revenue. And so, of
hmm.
course, we want to get to know them and their intentions and motivations in the business, but then also understand their business and personal budgets. What is their capital
Hmm.
deficit? What's the amount of the bridge that they need? And then make a business plan to provide that and ultimately set them free. And it's a mission that we're on, man, because a number of us went through this exact
Hmm.
scenario. And man, how nice it would have been to have someone help expedite that transition for us.
Yeah,
And so it's a business model that makes sense for us and certainly brings liberty and freedom to advisors and gives them the ability to provide an optimal client experience as well.
which is incredible. You guys, Axiom currently has close to 100 advisors, right?
That's
Operating
correct.
under this model.
That's correct. Yes. Mhm.
So the advisor who is advisor one, and this resonates, what information do they need to give to you guys to see if this is a possible solution and model they can operate under? What is that next step for them?
Sure. Well, within the context of having something as simple as a Zoom meeting,
Hmm.
we of course want to go over just what does their practice look like today and just have a conversation around the experience that they're providing their clients. What are their financials of their practice? What products are they using and how are they using those? What does revenue look like today? And to see if we're of one accord, how we could put a business plan together to make the transition for them.
Yeah, that seems pretty simple.
I mean, it's not complex, but it's
Yeah,
also not easy.
simple, not easy. Yeah. So if that's you, you feel a pull in your heart and there's a resonance here, go to axiomplanningresources.com/connect and you can essentially get a time with Lane, one of the team members who's incredible. And she works with advisors and is really good at getting numbers and understanding your story and to see how that transition can make sense for you. And there's also a lot of other resources that you guys have put out, the Top One Advisor podcast, and a lot of resources on the Axiom site, ton of video testimonies from other advisors. So encourage you to check that out as well. And only if it feels like it makes sense to have that conversation, then you should have that conversation.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And you mentioned the podcast. So the top one refers to the top 1% of financial advisors, right? And that's what everybody wants to understand. And so that podcast is really about getting inside the mind, the heart, the
mm,
communication, and the habits of the top one as it relates to practice management, financial planning, their insurance business, wealth management, and again, the way that they think, the way that they feel, the way that they speak, and what their habits are. And there's some great content. To give more context to this conversation, Chris, highly
yeah.
recommend that the podcast for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks for your time. Go check out the resources and maybe a conversation will happen soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.